Hey, Lorenzo, I want to talk to you about something that I actually feel it is one of the most critical aspects of conversion optimization, which is the big idea. And I think what happens is that when you and I are working on something, there are micro improvements and kind of like best practices and kind of tweaks and stuff like that. That's fine. But ultimately, to me, and I know you would agree with me, the needle mover is an idea that was new and novel that none of your competitors are using. That's how conversions really move. I mean, if you're looking for a 10, 15, 20% improvement, that's what you need, no matter what you're selling. And this then brings up a very important kind of concept, which is, I believe ideas are like babies. And when I'm working on a project, and I know when you and I are working on projects together, I might sit in a corner and I might have this idea. And when I share it with you, I feel so nervous because I'm like, shucks, I hope the idea doesn't suck. I hope that, Lorenzo doesn't find a gaping hole in it. And oftentimes, because of that anxiety, we don't share ideas until we're absolutely convinced it's a really good idea. The thing is, though, that, oftentimes we don't know if an idea is really good till very, very late in the process. It takes us time to kind of prototype it and think about it, write copy around it, see if the idea has legs. And I'm imagining, especially if you're dealing with a team of like 5 or 6 people, now it's 5 or 6 times more likely that ideas are getting killed by team members because they don't want to be ridiculed by other members of the team. And not just ridiculed, but what if the idea fails? That thought of like, what if this idea sucks? And now I've lost some leverage. And you and I are have been doing this a long time, and I want to be honest, and I want to tell people I have had more failing test concepts than pretty much anybody I know. And as a result, I can tell you that there have been at least 200 instances where the first 4 versions of an experiment didn't move the needle, or they hurt conversion rates. And then I didn't give up, and I just kept on tweaking it. And eventually I figured out how that idea, just the idea had enough shape for it to actually work. So if the idea, don't fall for the trap of saying, oh, not, first of all, don't kill the idea because you feel insecure about sharing it with friends. Don't kill the idea because you fear that it's going to fail. Don't even kill the idea. If it fails, go back and objectively reevaluate it and ask yourself, do I still believe in it? If you don't believe in it, then certainly get rid of it. But if you still feel like, I don't know why it failed, keep on making adjustments to it. So this was the topic, Lorenzo. I want to now toss it to you and get your perspective on this idea of this fragility of ideas.
I want to say only one thing, that this is a mistake that I have done a lot of times. Sometimes I still do it, which is, if an idea that hasn't worked, if an idea that I came up with hasn't worked, my confidence goes down, right? Like, oh, what do you mean you're not a good at CRO, right? And obviously there are moments where maybe like my mood is particularly down for other reasons, right? Where the confidence goes down. Other times where, my mood is normal because, I'm feeling in general happy with my life and so on, where I'm like, okay, this is just part of the game, right? I'm just playing the game. So I want to tell everybody, please don't ever, and I know this is not going to be super helpful, but do not feel you're not good enough if an idea fails, okay? Because it's part of the game. It's exactly what Rishi was saying. It's, keep on working on that. Keep on making tweaks. If an idea hasn't worked the first time, doesn't mean that there's no legs. Just keep on working on it. The more you work on it, the more you understand if it has legs or not. And if it hasn't worked, it doesn't mean that you're not good at your job. It's just part of the job. It's part of the game.
I'm going to mention 2 more things because I think I just had some ideas when you were talking. Lorenzo, tell me if this has ever happened to you. This is really shocking. I've actually had clients, and by the way, I love all my clients. I love you guys if you're watching this video. clients are, people who are running e-commerce businesses are spending serious amounts of money on things. So there's a huge amount of risk. So I totally understand where they're coming from. That said, I've actually had client conversations, Lorenzo, where not only, so we're talking about the fact that ideas are fragile and sometimes they fail, and that isn't, I've actually had scenarios where clients have rejected an entire category of ideas because one iteration of something failed. So an example is a client would say, we tested copy in the past and we realized that copy didn't work. So therefore copy is off the table. so, and I understand where they're coming from, but it's like, please don't kill the entire baby nursery because one baby was, had some kind of defect. The other thing I want to mention is just to give you a personal example of, I believe in this, the fragility of ideas so much. And there are so many stories in business about entrepreneurs where they just kept on failing. They went to venture capital firms, they didn't get funding, and then they eventually got, like, they just continue persevering. I think those stories are absolutely, this is exactly how you need to fight for ideas. I want to just give you a practical example. We're a very small company agency, and in 2021, I spent $57,000, and that does not include the time of my team and consultants that I used to run the campaign to do paid search, because I was absolutely convinced that we can crack the nut, and we didn't. We failed. We weren't able to get the economics to work for the business, and at some point, of course, we had to shelve that project. I'm going to now restart that project, and my point is that why am I doing this? Well, there's no ego involved here. I truly love the idea of finding someone, connecting someone who is actively searching to solve a problem with a value proposition that I can communicate to them in 15 seconds, where I'm not so it's a very fascinating puzzle for me. It's like a typical CRO puzzle, and I'm not scared to put my money in it again. And so that's how you have to, you have to treat ideas, like treat them with like love and care. And you can't obviously love all ideas equally. And that's why you need to be really mindful at the start of the process in terms of like, what types of ideas do I feel that this project would actually benefit from? This is why we focus on selling angles right at the top of the project. But once you've found the selling angle that you think is relevant, so for example, if I'm working for a company like Tile, which is the little device that tells you, if you've lost if you've lost a device, I'm really paying attention. Like, what is the use case? What is the principal use case? What is the way in which I want to sell it? And once I've identified the selling angle that I want to like really bet the farm on, I need to like keep on continuing to work on it till we figure it out. Testing, there are stats out there, but I'm pretty confident that 60 to 90% of tests fail, not because the idea is bad, but because the design wasn't done appropriately. Maybe the targeting wasn't appropriate. Maybe people didn't even discover that element that you were testing. There's a whole bunch of reasons. It's not always because, oh, people saw my selling angle and then they rejected it. They actually didn't even discover it was there. And so treat ideas with fragility. That's the lesson of today's episode. And tell us what you think about this. Tell us if you agree, if you disagree. Tell us about personal stories. Like, what is the idea? What is the idea that you have kind of persevered on, continue pursuing, even though you had doubts and people around you had doubts, but eventually you got to the finish line? We'd love those stories. So please share it with us. And we will see you again with yet another episode. Thanks, Lorenzo. We'll see you guys soon. Ciao.
Ciao.